Hello, I am Qiyara, and welcome to another video. Today, we are going to be reacting to a Glaivekiyo video. This is why Wuthering Waves feels better to play than Genshin Elemental System is what the video is called. I also have a little short that I want to react to after the fact, because it's also about Wuthering Waves. So, do they have anything to do together? Probably not, but I'm going to put them together anyway. So let's get into the video.
There is always something that separates one thing from another. Sometimes it is obvious.
I am going to pause every time I want to talk because the video I made yesterday, although this one, as you can see, I have it turned down. If I had it maxed out, it would be way too loud compared to my voice. So I'm just going to try to pause it every time I want to talk so that my thoughts are easily understood and I don't have to subtitle it like I did yesterday.
Like color, weight, or the number of limbs. Other times it is more abstract. Why one guy farms W's in the chat while the other one gets scrutinized to hell, even though they're probably making the same arguments. Why two things can look the same but only one of them feels right. We spend a lot of time trying
What the hell? Okay, it is quality. I don't know. This quality
to
looks
define those differences. It is kind of our thing.
low,
We
but
like systems that draw lines
just be
between
some of the things.
categories. Fire beats grass.
I literally just went past what I was gonna say. What I was saying. We're gonna go back. I was just saying that the video looks kind of low quality, but sorry.
The same, but only one of them feels right. We spend a lot of time trying to define those differences. It is kind of our thing. We like systems that draw lines between categories. Fire beats grass, rock beats paper, gun beats sword. That sort of logic comforts us. It makes the world easier to digest. And in games, nothing embodies that impulse more than elemental systems. They are everywhere. They're easy to explain, easy to market, and when they are done well, they add depth, synergy, identity. But when they are done poorly, or worse, when they feel meaningless.
Damn, that sounds harsh when you got Genshin on the screen.
It all starts to collapse. Suddenly every character feels the same. Every fight starts to blend together, and the illusion of choice turns out to be just that, an illusion. That is actually where Wuthering Waves started. When it launched, one of the earliest criticisms was that the characters felt interchangeable, that there wasn't enough variety, that it didn't matter who you brought because the systems didn't reward difference. Elemental identity existed technically, but it wasn't doing anything meaningful.
Genshin and fucking Changli kind of play the same fucking way.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I still didn't get it, but hey, the devs listen now.
I don't have Jinshi, so I don't know what he's talking about, but judging by Tectone's reaction, he's probably on crack.
Because over time, updates rolled out that tried to address that sameness, starting quietly and then more deliberately, with the introduction of elemental negative statuses, frazzle, erosion.
Yeah, actually, this is funny, because I'm pretty sure that other video is about Spectrofrazzle and arrow erosion, but it's funny they say that, because I don't think any of these, I mean, we only have arrow erosion so far, and we don't have Spectrofrazzle down here. And I'm pretty sure these other things, if they're in the game, they're only done by enemies on you.
And flares, subtle debuffs with names that sounded dramatic, but effects that didn't exactly blow anyone's socks off. And that led to a second wave of criticism. Now that variety does exist, it is apparently not good.
I guess from what he's saying right there is they don't sound like they have a like the effects of the negative effects aren't really that good. But I mean, do we have the other ones in the game? Like, do other people already apply those? I don't think I know about any people that apply those. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess.
Enough.
Access these debuffs, which would be cool if majority of them didn't fucking suck.
I think it's fair to say Spectrofrazzle doesn't do that much damage.
But here is where I think it gets interesting. Because what if it not being good is the point? Let's
Okay,
talk.
so wait, sorry. My brain lags.
I think it's fair to say Spectrofrazzle doesn't do that much damage.
But here is where
I didn't realize that this is Glaivekiyo's VTuber model. Let's go, fellow manly voices under the female avatar.
I think it gets interesting. Because what if it not being good is the point? Let's talk about that. And you could see it from the beginning. Players looked at the elemental icons next to each character and went, red equals fire, blue equals water, green set goes on the green guy. I'm a genius. I'm gonna be a gacha content creator. And honestly,
damn.
I don't blame them. The game doesn't go out of its way to explain anything. Or maybe it did and we just didn't notice. So when the enemies started inflicting negative effects, like arrow erosion or spectrofrazzle, and the health bars quietly melted away after the fight was over, However, people assumed that it was a bug. So for a lot of players, their first impression of the elemental system was confusion, followed by dismissal.
Okay, so a lot of the negative effects are just to be applied to us, which is kind of stupid then.
System felt mundane or shallow, or worse, broken. But it wasn't broken, it was just subtle. Subtle in a way that caught people off guard. And that is where the misunderstanding started.
Just dodge, forehead.
And once people did start to notice the elemental mechanics, the next reaction came almost instantly. Oh, so it's just like Genshin. Which I mean, visually,
No. Genshin is way different. You have to have two different elements that have an elemental reaction together to actually do the elemental reaction. And not all elemental reactions are created equal.
Guess so. You've got color-coded elements. That is an aesthetic overlap, that is fair to say. But beyond that, the comparison falls...
Wait, why did he... Sorry.
Color-coded element.
What the fuck? This is so wrong. What the fuck? We got Dendro needs to be here colored. Dendro colored, Geo colored. Shoot. Where? No, sorry. So this is Cryo. So Cryo goes here, Hydro goes here, and then the green goes to the what is it called? Arrow, not arrow. Whatever the freaking wind is, and then these two colors are swapped, and then and these two colors are swapped. I don't know why he did this. He's just trying to fuck with us.
That is an aesthetic overlap, that is fair to say. But beyond that, the comparison falls apart pretty quickly. What is funny is that people seem to forget elemental systems are one of the oldest design staples in gaming. Pokemon had it since the 90s. Final Fantasy had it, or even in Gacha, Summoners War also had it. This isn't a new invention, and it definitely isn't owned by Genshin.
I think the main thing with Genshin, though, is it's the specific elemental reactions on how they work. Is you have to apply two different effects, at least two, or in like Dendro's case, three, in order to do them. I think just cutting it or like breaking it down into just saying elemental because elements is a bit redundant because when you're talking about Genshin, you're specifically talking about the elemental system on how they interact with each other, and not just the fact that there is an elemental system with elements like Pokemon. Pokemon has elements, but the elements are fire. You use a fire type move on a grass type Pokemon, it's super effective, 2 times damage. Or grass bug, it's 4 times effective because both grass and bug are weak to fire. That's way different than the way Genshin does it.
What actually matters is how the system functions in the gameplay loop. And here is where Wuthering Waves quietly goes in a completely different direction. Genshin's system is built around elemental reactions.
Yeah.
It is the centerpiece. The whole combat loop is optimized around triggering
Okay, I guess I should have just let him talk, but yeah.
specific reactions, because some are clearly stronger than the
What the fuck? I haven't played Genshin since like right after Natlan came out.
combat loop is optimized around triggering specific reactions, because some are clearly stronger
You just fly up there with Solly? What the
than
fuck?
the others. If you are not running Vaporize, Melt, or Hyper Bloom, you are probably doing less damage than
True. That's exactly what I just said. True.
you could. It becomes a meta obligation. Wuthering Waves though, it doesn't really care if you're triggering arrow erosion or not. These effects exist, but they are not the main.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason is because they were an afterthought. They were added after the game was released and not like with the game's release. So, I don't know. They would definitely have to add it to old characters in order for it to be a like staple of the game.
Axis of power. In fact, they're all
I think the main thing that it's doing is it adds variety to different teams. Like we have Phoebe and Zani for Spectrofrazzle, but that doesn't make Jinshi less valuable because she's also spectral damage. But she still does a lot of damage because she's not focused on the Spectrofrazzle part of Spectro. She's just doing damage. If that makes sense.
almost deliberately modest, and that restraint opens up a really different kind of flexibility. So yeah, the comparison to Genshin is common, but honestly it is pretty surface level. It misses what makes Wuthering Waves' system feel unique, and to really see how
I think the main thing with Wuthering Waves that is copying Genshin isn't the combat system though. It's the It's the gotcha. It's the menus in the top right. It's like I said yesterday's video. It's the menus in the top right. The HP. I mean, this is kind of common everywhere. HP in the bottom, but level down here we got the attacks and keybinds behind my character. Let me see if I can move. Oh, like over here we got like attacks and stuff, and then up here we have the map, and then under the map is the quest. I mean, that's very Genshin-esque, and then you press F3 to go to the wish menu, and F2 to go to the battle pass, and F1 to go to events, and B to go to your backpack. And I mean, it's very Genshin inspired, and there's a lot of things that are copied from Genshin, and I think that's what most people are talking about when they're comparing Wuthering Waves to Genshin. At least people who are intellectually not intellectually challenged like Whale Shells. But yeah, it's not the combat that I would say that most people are comparing, at least. I don't know. I think that most people are comparing, at least.
How the two differ, you have to look at how they influence team building. And that is
That was 2 ads in 2 minutes. Or in 4 minutes. What the fuck?
where things get interesting. So let's talk about the Genshin system, because yes, it is powerful and arguably it is polished, but there is a cost to how tightly everything is optimized. Take reactions like Vaporize or Hyper Bloom. These aren't just strong, they're mathematically overwhelming. Once you get into higher level content,
Second. Like on my recording, I can see that it's cutting off like part of the side right here. Can I not see my
and it stops being a
right here? I can see it's cutting off right here, and I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, it's still cutting off a little bit on the side, but it's working now. I will cut most of that out though.
preference and becomes a requirement. If your team isn't built around one of these reactions, you are wasting your time. Meanwhile, teams built around things like superconduct or physical damage in general quietly falls off the face of Teyvat. And
Yeah, my favorite character, Eula, just kind of fucking sucks ass. Well, she's not. I don't think she's awful. But comparing to the actual good elemental reactions, it's just not really a comparison. Also, I haven't played in a while, so maybe Eula is really trash now.
in mono geo teams, let's just say copium is a renewable source in that community. And then there is elemental resonance. On paper, it sounds cool. Bring 2 pyro characters and then get an attack buff. Okay, nice. But in practice, some of these resonances are so lopsided that it forces team building into this narrow.
I haven't looked at these in a while. Affected by Pyro 40% less time, increased healing by 30%. Affected by Cryo 40% less time, increased attack. Stamina reduction by 50%, increased movement speed, and shortened skill CD by 5%. That's kind of lame. Increased resistance to interruptions. When protected by a shield, increased attack damage. I didn't actually know that was a thing, but I don't think I've ever used Dendro. No bonus? Combining Dendro heroes yield no bonus. For that reason, it is not recommended. You can, however, combine 4 different elements for a bonus. I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay. Yeah, and then there's the 4 unique. Affected by Electro less, increased crit rate against enemies frozen or affected by Cryo. Affected by Hydro less, Super Connect, Overload, and generate an extra elemental particle. Okay.
Arrow, meta choke corner. You are not choosing characters because you like them. You are choosing them because not picking them is mathematically irresponsible. That's why Bennett gets dragged into nearly every team with a pyro unit with DPSs that
Okay, it's kind of funny just randomly saying Marvel Rivals here.
scales on attack. Not because people like his playstyle, it's because the system leans so hard on his existence that not bringing him feels like throwing. And the real kicker, some content outright locks you out if you don't have the correct element. Abyss Lectors, for example.
True.
You walk in without the right counter element and
absolutely
you're
stupid.
basically doing 0 damage. It is not even about strategy at that point. It is a hard stop. So yeah, Genshin's system has depth, but it is depth with a leash. You're allowed to explore until you are not. And that is where Wuthering Waves quietly breaks away. Wuthering Waves takes the opposite approach. It doesn't slap you on the wrist for using the wrong element, it just quietly lets you deal less damage. Enemies have resistances, sure, but they are not immune. You can still bring an arrow character into an arrow boss.
Yeah, that's true. True. I mean, Sentry Construct, I believe, is Glacio resistant, and everything except in the hologram, I use just Carlotta with. The hologram is a little bit more annoying, so I had to use my Camellia team to kill it with all of its difficulties, but still, it's not impossible like it is with Abyss Lecterns.
The game won't stop you, it just won't reward you for it. And that sounds like a small difference, but it's not. It fundamentally shifts the tone of how you build teams. There are no Abyss Lecter style brick walls. The only real exceptions are the elemental prisms, but the rest of the game, it is freedom. You want to bring a full Spectro team into a Spectro resistant boss fight? You want to solo difficulty 6 hologram Hecate with a Danjin? Go for it. You will struggle a bit, but you will get
Hecate? Hecate? Or, yeah, I don't remember how other people say it, but I say Hecate. Hecate is a weird way to say it.
through it. Even the endgame incentives are soft nudges. Tower of Adversity resets with elemental buffs, like 25% electro damage, but it's a bonus, not a requirement. You don't need to reroll your whole team just to
Yeah, and another thing about this is most of the time, these extra resistances are something that the unit already has a resistance for. So Crownless has the Havoc resistance. So the 10% extra makes it 50, or I think it's 50% resistant to Havoc. So you shouldn't even be bringing Havoc anyway. This is just like, this isn't even necessary. The decreased res for by 10%. You can use any unit as long as it's not. I mean, you could even do Electro against Crownless. It wouldn't be impossible. It would just be a little bit more hard than a regular Crownless level 100 fight would be.
to squeeze into that buff. It is there if you want it. It doesn't punish you if you don't. And in a landscape where so many games use systems,
That's exactly what he said. Yeah, it's there if you want it, and you want to use units that benefit from the elemental res decrease, but it's not necessary.
to dictate what you should be playing, Wuthering Waves' refusal to over-engineer its elemental mechanics actually feels refreshing. Like the game trusts you to figure out what works for you, not just what the theory crafting spreadsheet says is best. This same design principle, this restraint, shows up again with how the game handles elemental status effects, especially after the 2.0 update, where things get a little bit more interesting. The 2.0 update was the turning point where Wuthering Waves stopped keeping elemental debuffs behind glass. Before, things like Arrow Erosion or Spectrofrazzle were mostly just things enemies did to you. Mild
Okay.
annoyance
Yeah, exactly. They were just things that enemies did.
status effects you cleared with
If you wonder why the video keeps skipping, I keep getting ads, and you're probably going to see like the very beginning of it, and then I'm going to skip past it. So yeah.
without thinking. But after 2.0, they become tools that you can actually use. Players get access to them through new kits and new characters. You can now inflict the same debuffs that used to just tick on your HP bar. On paper, that sounds like a big shift, empowering even. But the reality is a little bit funnier. Frazzle damage is barely noticeable. Arrow erosion, more like windburn. Inflicting the enemy with Electro Flare gives them a mild attack down, which might matter if
Wait,
anything lived long enough for attack stats to matter.
does Electro Flare, does units have? Can we apply Electric Flare with somebody?
No matter how you lower the attack of the enemy hologram, you will get one shot regardless. And
True.
if you're not one shot, you are probably left with 1 HP. But it didn't take long before people started treating the whole system like a gimmick. A nice bonus if it happens, otherwise who cares? But here's the twist, and probably the part that is going to aid
Yeah, except Zani cares because she turns Spectrofrazzle stacks into her own stacks, which increase her own damage and increase her. I believe it increases how long she can, or how many attacks she can use in her ultimate form, something like that. I don't have Zani, so I don't know, but I have used Zani a little bit on my friend's account.
age best. That is actually the point. Because in most games, especially gacha ARPGs, elemental effects are over-engineered. You start with a cool system, and then before long, you are neck deep in spreadsheets trying to maximize uptime on a 7-second debuff that enables a 0.3-second reaction window for your real damage. I just said a lot of yap. I might turn into a Hoyoverse content creator. But anyway,
Glaive44, I don't know who. Is that Doro that he's throwing shade at?
Wuthering Waves does it differently. These debuffs aren't meant to define your kit, they are extensions, little accents you can lean into or completely ignore. If you want to build a team around applying consistent Frazzle procs or chaining Arrow Erosion across AoE pulls, go for it. The tools are there, but the game doesn't punish you for not using them.
Well, I mean, like I said before, I think one of the main reasons that they don't punish you is because they weren't a part of the game. Like, well, they might have been in the game since the very beginning, but they weren't like something that the player characters could use in the beginning. If the game was made with that in mind, maybe it would be a little bit more different. But I guess that is theoretical.
Yen doesn't need it. Jinshi doesn't care. Debuff or no debuff, these characters will destroy the enemies. The core DPS kits are strong enough to stand on their own, and that is deliberate. It is the kind of restraints that you don't really notice until you have played other systems that don't have it. And suddenly you remember what it's like to build a team because it's fun, not because the game told you to. There is an elegance in that kind of minimalism. It gives breathing room for casual players who just wants to hit buttons, and for theory crafters who do want to dive into layered debuff stacks and proc chains. The system doesn't force either camp into the other's playstyle, and that flexibility
That's fair.
is what gives the elemental system room to grow. Because now, if future updates start introducing deeper interactions or more meaningful status effects, they're doing it from a foundation that isn't already overextended. Wuthering Waves isn't afraid to leave space on the canvas, and maybe that is what makes Wuthering Waves feel so different. Not because it lacks depth, but because it doesn't demand it. In most games, there's always that one unit, the if you don't have them, don't bother kind of unit. But here, there are no must-pull DPS characters, not really. Even Shorekeeper, who gets tossed around as the exception of a must-pull, isn't a damage dealer. She is a support, and even then, you are not locked out of content for skipping her. You can pair almost anyone with anyone. Carlotta, for example, can be paired as double DPS with Changli, Brand, Shangli Yao, or played as a hyper carry with Zhe, Cantarella, Yang Yang, Tao.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that, the name like that. I normally hear it like Jeja, kind of like a J sound for both the Z's. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just making fun of a foreign accent.
Lumi, no one is going to stop you. And the
Except Lumi's kind of ass.
worst thing that happens is you clear a few seconds slower, or more likely, you just hit a little less hard in content that doesn't need you to min-max in the first place. And that extends.
I mean, there's like the holograms and stuff, and if you're using the like Lumi as one of your units, you are likely not going to be getting all the rewards in the end game content, at least.
To the elemental system. Debuffs like Frazzle and Erosion aren't some hidden nuke mechanics. They are not game breaking, and they're not trying to be. They are just another way to flavor your damage, another layer to explore if you want it. There is no spreadsheet yelling at you to keep your uptime perfect, unless you're a Colcharo main. What Wuthering Waves gets right is subtle. It is not about forcing you to play a certain way, it is about inviting you to. The elemental system doesn't chase the high of a perfectly timed hyper bloom reaction. It doesn't punish you for ignoring it either. It is there for players who want to optimize, but it doesn't make the optimization the price of entry. Some players will call that a missed opportunity, others will see it as a breathing room. But
yeah, I mean, Kuro seems to
either
have
way,
implemented it. Whoops, I didn't mean to unpause right there. Kuro seems to have implemented it as a way to diversify, like I said earlier.
it is clear that Wuthering Waves gives you something most games in this space don't. The space to choose how you want to play. And maybe that is worth more than raw numbers on a stat sheet. But that is all from me, Glaivekiyo, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!
Yeah. That's a good video. I don't remember what I was going to say. Well, rip. Let's watch this other video real quick before I finish off.
Wuthering Waves has a serious problem. Kuro is designing...
Jade, what is your...
Oh my gosh.
Wuthering Waves has a serious problem. Kuro is designing new characters that only work with brand new mechanics, and it's making half the old roster completely useless.
Wrong.
The devs introduced...
I did watch like half of this, and I was like, you know what? I can put this as part of my video. This is Brain Dead Take.
Spectrofrazzle and Arrow Erosion, but instead of updating old kits, they just gave them to new 5-stars.
Yep, and like Leashed said, it's because they weren't initially added to the... Well, he didn't say that. Because they're not necessary. They're just a bonus thing.
Phoebe and Zanny need Spectrofrazzle. Chakona...
Well, Zani needs Spectrofrazzle. Phoebe applies Spectrofrazzle. I guess she also... Maybe she deals damage? I don't know. I guess I don't know her kit too well. Maybe she applies more damage with having Spectrofrazzle stacks. But it's part of the character kit, so... Stop being brain dead.
Arrow Rover and Carpathia, Arrow Erosion locked. Only one older unit got buffed, Spectro Rover. Everyone else, forgotten. Jian, Yang Yang, Jianshin, Alto, Yuanwu.
Maybe they're talking about Yanwu here because of the Electro thing, but I swear he's an Electro unit, so I don't know why you're bringing him up when you just brought up a bunch of Arrow people. Yanwu is not Arrow.
All the early Arrow and Spectro units.
I know Yanwu is neither Arrow or Spectro, but Yanwu is more memorable, to be honest. That's stupid.
Have zero synergy with the new meta. No scaling, no buffs, no relevance. And unless you wail for the newest 5 stars, your entire team might as well be fighting blind.
No, because you don't even need the effects. You can go in with your Carlotta and kill everything. You can go in with your freaking Genshin and kill everything. You can go in with your Brant, kill everything. Like, they're not necessary.
This isn't just power creep, this is soft retirement of half the cast. If Kuro doesn't start buffing older units soon, we're looking at a game where every update kills the one before it.
No. What the fuck? Are you on Ahoyo Copium? That's Hongai Star Rail. Every update is... It's not killing the update before it. It's killing like the update from like 4 patches ago because they want to release a new power creep character. That was a pretty brain dead video. I'm not gonna do anything with it. I was tempted to dislike, but we're not. You guys is. But yeah, that is the video. If you did enjoy, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and comment. And I sometimes stream on Twitch, so go follow me over there. Until next time, you guys have a wonderful day /night. Bye bye.